A single father working under a car hood. A CEO in designer heels stepping into his garage. A proposal that will shatter both their worlds. When Olivia Grant offers Ethan Cole money to fake a relationship and escape her arranged engagement, neither expects what comes next. A collision of two lives that will expose family corruption, destroy reputations, and force them both to choose between safety and something real. If you want to see where this story takes them, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey reaches. Now, let's begin. The fluorescent lights in Cole's auto repair buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the oil-stained concrete floor. Ethan Cole lay on his back beneath a '98 Honda Civic, wrench in hand, listening to the familiar drip of coolant into the catch pan. His daughter's school fees were due in 3 days. The number sat in his head like a stone. $847. He had $340 in the bank. "Dad, the phone's ringing again," came a voice from the office doorway. Ethan didn't look up. "Let it go to voicemail, Mia." "It already did. Twice." He slid out from under the car, wiping grease from his forearms with a rag that only spread it around. Mia stood in the doorway holding a juice box, her backpack still on from school. She was 8 years old with tangled brown hair and a gap-toothed smile that made his chest ache every time he saw it. "You're supposed to be doing homework," he said. "I finished my math. Mrs. Patterson says I'm getting better at fractions." "That's my girl." He pushed himself to his feet, joints cracking. 32 wasn't old, but some days his body disagreed. "Go grab a snack. I'll check the phone in a minute." Mia disappeared into the small office that doubled as their break room. Ethan looked around the garage. 2 bays, both occupied, both jobs paying barely enough to cover parts and labor. The building lease was going up next month. He'd need to let go of Marcus, his part-time guy, which meant longer hours and less time with Mia. He heard the rumble before he saw it. The engine note was wrong for this neighborhood. Too smooth, too expensive. Ethan stepped out into the late afternoon sunlight just as a black Mercedes S-Class pulled into his lot, looking as out of place as a diamond in a toolbox. The door opened and a woman stepped out. Everything about her was precise. Tailored gray suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Dark hair pulled back in a way that suggested control. Heels that clicked against the asphalt with the confidence of someone who'd never second-guessed a decision in her life. She couldn't have been much older than him, early 30s maybe, but she carried herself like she'd already lived 3 lifetimes. She stopped a few feet away, looking at the garage with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. "Are you Ethan Cole?" she asked. "Depends on who's asking." "Olivia Grant." She said it like he should recognize the name. When he didn't react, something flickered across her face, surprise maybe, or relief. "I need your help." "If it's about the Mercedes, I can take a look, but I'm booked through Friday. There's a dealership on Morrison that..." "It's not about the car." She glanced over her shoulder at the street, then back at him. "Can we talk somewhere private?" Ethan studied her. People like this didn't walk into places like his garage asking for help. They sent assistants. They made appointments. They certainly didn't look nervous. "Office is through there," he said, pointing. She followed him past the Civic, her heels echoing off the concrete. Mia looked up from her homework when they entered, eyes going wide at the stranger. "Mia, why don't you go next door and see if Mr. Chen has any of those spring rolls left?" "But I just had a..." "Take $5 from the register." Mia's face lit up. She grabbed the money and was gone in seconds, the door swinging shut behind her. Olivia Grant stood in the middle of the small office, looking at the cluttered desk, the coffee maker with its cracked pot, the calendar from 2023 still hanging on the wall because Ethan kept forgetting to take it down. "You wanted to talk," Ethan said. She turned to face him, and for the first time since she'd arrived, he saw past the polished exterior. She looked exhausted. Not physically. Her makeup was perfect, her posture straight, but something in her eyes suggested she hadn't really slept in days. "I need to hire you," she said. "For what?" "To be my boyfriend." Ethan blinked. "What?" "Not actually. Fake it. For a weekend." She said it matter-of-factly, like she was ordering coffee. "I'll pay you $50,000. The number hit him like cold water. 50,000. That was Mia's school for the next 3 years. That was the garage lease covered. That was breathing room he hadn't had since Rachel died. "Lady, I don't know what kind of..." I'm being forced into an engagement, Olivia said, cutting him off. My family has arranged everything. The ceremony is this weekend at my mother's estate. If I show up alone, I'll be married off to a business partner by Monday. But if I show up with someone, anyone, it buys me time, creates doubt, gives me leverage to fight back. Why me? Because you're not part of that world. You won't care about the money they wave around or the connections they offer. You won't be impressed by the name or the reputation. And you look, she paused, choosing her words, real, ordinary, exactly the kind of choice that would infuriate my mother. Ordinary, great. I didn't mean it as an insult. Sure sounded like one. Ethan crossed his arms. You want me to show up at some fancy party, pretend to be your boyfriend, and piss off your family so you don't have to marry some guy you don't like? That about right? Essentially, yes. And you think throwing money at a stranger is going to solve your problem? Her jaw tightened. I think I'm out of options. I've tried reasoning with them. I've tried legal routes. I've tried everything except the one thing that might actually work. Showing them I won't be controlled. By hiring someone to play pretend. By making a choice they can't undo. Ethan shook his head. I've got a daughter. I can't just disappear for a weekend to play house with someone I don't know. Bring her. Absolutely not. Then I'll arrange care. I'll pay for it. Whatever you need. Olivia stepped closer, and he could see the desperation creeping into her carefully maintained composure. Mr. Cole, I wouldn't be here if I had any other options. I've spent the last 3 days trying to find someone who would do this and not sell me out to the press or use it as blackmail later. You're my last attempt before I run out of time. How'd you even find me? I asked my driver where he'd take his car if it broke down in this neighborhood. He said here. Said you were honest. She pulled out her phone, opened a banking app, and turned the screen toward him. 25,000 now, 25,000 after. All I need is one weekend. Ethan looked at the number on the screen. It was real. This whole insane situation was actually real. I need to think about it, he said. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, I'm out of time. She pulled a business card from her jacket pocket and set it on his desk. Olivia Grant, CEO, Grant Industries. He recognized the name now. Tech company, government contracts, something about defense systems, way above his pay grade. Call me before 9 a.m., she said, or don't. Either way, thank you for listening. She walked out without another word. Ethan stood there holding the business card, listening to the Mercedes engine fade into the distance. Mia came back 10 minutes later with a container of spring rolls and a fortune cookie. Who was that lady? She asked. Someone with a problem. Are you going to help her? Ethan looked at his daughter, at her worn sneakers and the backpack with the broken zipper he kept meaning to replace, at the life he'd built for her that was always one emergency away from falling apart. I don't know yet, kiddo. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with a beer and Olivia Grant's business card. His phone was next to it, screen dark. $50,000. He tried to imagine that kind of money, tried to picture what it would feel like to not worry about every bill, every expense, every unexpected cost that could tank their lives. But he also knew what his brother would say. Michael had always been the cautious one, the planner. He'd tell Ethan this was insane. That people like Olivia Grant didn't just hand out money without strings attached, that getting involved with that world would only bring trouble. Michael wasn't here, though. He'd moved to Oregon 3 years ago for a job and barely called anymore. It was just Ethan and Mia now. It had been just them since Rachel's car accident when Mia was 4. Ethan picked up the phone. The call connected on the second ring. Mr. Cole? Olivia's voice was clear, alert. She hadn't been sleeping either. I'll do it, Ethan said. But we set ground rules, clear boundaries, and you tell me exactly what I'm walking into. Agreed. Can you meet tomorrow? I'll send a car. I've got my own car. A pause. Of course. I'll text you the address. And Olivia? Yes? This thing you're trying to escape, is it going to put my daughter at risk? No, I promise you that. Because if it does, if anything happens, it won't. You have my word. Ethan ended the call and sat in the dark kitchen for a long time after that, wondering what he'd just agreed to. The address Olivia sent led to a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel, The kind of building Ethan had driven past 1,000 times without ever thinking about who actually worked inside. The lobby had marble floors and a security desk where he had to show ID before they'd let him near the elevators. Olivia's office was on the 23rd floor. Her assistant, a young guy in an expensive shirt, led him through a maze of cubicles and conference rooms before depositing him in a space that was more window than wall. The city sprawled out below, tiny cars and people moving like pieces on a game board. Olivia stood when he entered. She looked different without the suit jacket, more human somehow. White blouse, dark slacks, her hair down instead of pulled back. "You came," she said. "Told you I would." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Ethan sat. There was a folder waiting for him, thick with papers. "I had my attorney draw up a contract," Olivia said. "It outlines everything: payment terms, confidentiality clauses, expectations for the weekend. You should have a lawyer review it before signing." "I don't have a lawyer." "I can recommend—" "Just tell me what it says." Olivia opened the folder and walked him through it. The terms were straightforward enough. He'd accompany her to her family's estate this weekend for her engagement announcement. He'd pose as her boyfriend. He'd stay through Sunday evening. In exchange, he'd receive $50,000, half up front, half after. "The confidentiality clause means you can't talk about this to anyone," Olivia said. "No press, no social media, no friends. It's binding for 5 years. And if I break it, you'd owe triple the payment amount in damages." She looked at him steadily. "I'm not trying to trap you, Mr. Cole. I'm trying to protect both of us. What we're doing is unconventional. If it gets out before I've dealt with my family situation, it could be used against me." "What exactly is your family situation?" Olivia leaned back in her chair. "My father built Grant Industries from nothing. When he died 4 years ago, he left control of the company to my mother and the board of directors. I'm CEO in title, but every major decision goes through them. They've been pushing me toward a merger with Consolidated Defense for the last 2 years. The easiest way to make that happen is to marry me off to Andrew Blackwood, their executive vice president. And you don't want to marry him. I don't want to be a business transaction." Her voice was quiet but fierce. "I've spent my entire life being molded into what they wanted. The right schools, the right internships, the right public image. I thought running the company would finally give me some autonomy. Instead, it just made me more valuable as an asset." Ethan studied her. "You could just say no." "I've tried. They've made it clear that if I refuse the engagement, they'll remove me as CEO and install someone more cooperative. Everything I've worked for, gone. So I started looking for alternatives. Legal challenges, board allies, anything. But it all takes time, and time is the one thing they're not giving me." "So you're going to show up with a fake boyfriend and hope that changes their minds?" "I'm going to show up with proof that I make my own choices. It won't stop them completely, but it'll create enough chaos that I can start fighting back. They can't marry me off if I'm already publicly involved with someone else. Even if that someone is fake. They don't need to know that. Not yet." Ethan looked down at the contract. $50,000. 1 weekend. He thought about Mia's school fees, the garage lease, the space he'd have to finally breathe. "What do I need to do?" he asked. Relief washed across Olivia's face. "Be yourself, that's all. My family will expect someone polished and artificial. The more you don't fit that mold, the better. Just be present. Be believable. And don't let them intimidate you. I've dealt with difficult customers before." "These aren't customers, they're—" She stopped, choosing her words. "They're people who are used to getting what they want. They'll try to humiliate you, buy you off, or discredit you. Probably all three." "Sounds like a great weekend." "I'm sorry, I know this isn't fair to you. You're paying me $50,000. Fair doesn't really enter into it." Ethan signed the contract. Olivia countersigned, then pulled out her phone and made a transfer. His phone buzzed a moment later with a notification from his bank. $25,000. Actually there. Actually real. "We leave Friday afternoon," Olivia said. "I'll pick you up at your garage. Pack for a weekend at a country estate, casual clothes, one nice outfit for dinner. And Mr. Cole? Yeah? Thank you. I know you're doing this for the money. But thank you anyway." The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Ethan arranged for Mia to stay with his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, a retired teacher who sometimes watched her when he had evening jobs. He packed a duffel bag with the only nice clothes he owned, khakis and a button-down he'd bought for Rachel's funeral. He tried not to think too hard about what he was actually doing. Friday came too fast. Olivia arrived at 2 p.m. in a different car this time, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. She was dressed down in jeans and a sweater, her hair loose, looking almost like a normal person except for the designer sunglasses and the way she moved with unconscious grace. Mia watched from the garage doorway as Ethan loaded his bag into the back. "Who's she?" Mia whispered. "A client. I'm helping her with something this weekend." "Is she nice?" Ethan looked at Olivia, who was checking her phone with a small frown. "I think so. I don't really know yet." "Be careful, Dad." He kissed the top of her head. "Always am." The drive took them out of the city and into wine country, rolling hills covered in vineyards, estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. They didn't talk much. Olivia made several phone calls, her voice sharp and professional, handling crises Ethan didn't understand. He watched the scenery change and tried to imagine what kind of people lived out here. After nearly 2 hours, they turned onto a private road. The gate opened automatically. The driveway stretched for half a mile before the house came into view. House was the wrong word. Estate was barely adequate. It was a sprawling manor that looked like it had been transplanted from the English countryside. 3 stories of gray stone, manicured gardens, a fountain in the circular drive. There were already several cars parked, luxury sedans and sports cars worth more than Ethan's garage. "We're the last to arrive," Olivia said quietly. "That's deliberate. I wanted everyone already here when I walked in with you." "Maximum impact." "Exactly." She parked and turned off the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. "Are you ready?" she asked. Ethan looked at the mansion, at the life he was about to step into. "No, but let's do it anyway." They got out. Olivia came around to his side, and before he realized what she was doing, she took his hand. Her fingers were cold. "They'll be watching from the windows," she said. "We need to look convincing." "Right." Her hand tightened on his. "And Ethan? Whatever happens in there, whatever they say, don't let them make you feel small. You're not." Before he could respond, the front door opened. A woman stood in the entrance, 50-something, perfectly styled, wearing the kind of elegant dress that whispered old money. Her eyes swept over Ethan with the precision of a laser, cataloging everything about him in 2 seconds flat. Her smile was warm and utterly empty. "Darling," she said to Olivia, "you're here." "Hello, Mother." Catherine Grant, Ethan had seen her photo in the business section enough times to recognize her, stepped forward and kissed the air near Olivia's cheeks. Then she turned her attention to Ethan. "And you must be—" She let the sentence hang. "Ethan Cole," he said, extending his hand. Catherine looked at his hand like it was something interesting she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. After a pause just long enough to be insulting, she shook it. "How interesting," she said. "Olivia didn't mention she was bringing anyone. Do come in. Everyone's gathered in the east parlor." She turned and walked inside. Olivia squeezed Ethan's hand once more, then followed her mother. Ethan took a breath and stepped through the door. The interior was exactly what he'd expected. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, oil paintings that were probably worth more than he'd make in 10 lifetimes. Catherine led them through a hallway and into a large room where about 20 people stood in small clusters, all holding wine glasses and making the kind of conversation that sounded pleasant but meant nothing. Every head turned when they entered. Olivia kept her chin up, her hand still in Ethan's. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Ethan Cole, my boyfriend." The silence that followed was exquisite. Then a man stepped forward from the crowd. He was Ethan's age, maybe a bit older, wearing a suit that fit like it had been made for him specifically. His smile was friendly, but his eyes were cold. "Olivia," he said smoothly, "this is unexpected." "Andrew?" Olivia's voice was perfectly neutral. "I'm sure it is." Andrew Blackwood, it had to be him, turned his attention to Ethan. "Ethan Cole, interesting name. What is it you do, Ethan?" "I fix cars." "Cars? How practical." Andrew's smile widened. "I apologize. I don't think we've met in our usual circles. What firm are you with?" "I'm not with a firm. I own a garage." The shift in the room was subtle but unmistakable. Expressions changed. People leaned closer to their neighbors, whispering. Catherine's face might as well have been carved from ice. A garage, Andrew repeated. How did you and Olivia meet? She brought her car in for service, Ethan said evenly. We got to talking. It wasn't technically a lie. Olivia had driven to his garage. They had talked. Andrew laughed, a practiced sound that didn't reach his eyes. How wonderfully romantic. A CEO and a mechanic. It's very modern. Andrew, Olivia said quietly. Don't. I'm not doing anything, darling, just getting to know your friend here. He stepped closer to Ethan, lowering his voice. Between you and me, Ethan, I have to admire your confidence. Walking into a room like this with people like us. Most men would be terrified. I don't scare easy, Ethan said. Clearly. Andrew's eyes flicked to Olivia, then back. Just a word of advice, from one man to another. Olivia's world is complicated. Lots of moving parts, lots of expectations. Sometimes people get caught in the machinery if they don't understand how it works. Is that a threat? It's a courtesy. Andrew smiled again. Enjoy the weekend, Ethan. I'm sure it will be memorable. He walked away, leaving Ethan standing with Olivia in the middle of a room full of strangers who were all watching them like specimens under glass. Well, Olivia said quietly, that went about as expected. A server appeared with wine. Olivia took 2 glasses and handed one to Ethan. Her hand was shaking slightly. You okay? He asked. No, but we're committed now. She took a sip of wine. Come on, I'll introduce you to the rest of them. Try not to let anyone draw blood. The next hour was a masterclass in passive aggression. Olivia led him from group to group, introducing him to relatives and family friends and business associates who all smiled and asked polite questions while their eyes judged everything about him. Where he went to school, what his family did, how he and Olivia really met. Each question was a small knife, carefully placed. Ethan answered truthfully and simply. He'd gone to community college for a year before dropping out to work. His father had been a plumber. He and Olivia met through work. He didn't elaborate, didn't justify, didn't apologize. He could feel Olivia's tension beside him with each answer, but he refused to play their game. Catherine appeared periodically to steer them toward particular people, always the wealthiest, the most connected, the ones whose disdain was most refined. She introduced Ethan as Olivia's friend, with a smile that made it clear what she thought of that friendship. Dinner was announced at 7. They filed into a dining room with a table that could seat 30. Ethan found himself positioned between Olivia and an older man who introduced himself as Richard Sterling, a board member. So Ethan, Richard said as the first course arrived, some kind of soup that probably had a French name. Olivia tells us you're in automotive repair must be quite different from her usual world. It is. I imagine you don't often attend gatherings like this. First time, actually. How are you finding it? Ethan looked around the table at the crystal and silver, the people in their expensive clothes talking about stock prices and political campaigns. Honestly, it's a little much. Richard laughed, actually laughed, not the polite chuckle everyone else had been giving. I like you, son. You're honest. That's rare around here. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Word of advice. These people are vultures. They're going to try to figure out what you want so they can use it against you. Don't give them anything. Noted. The meal progressed through courses Ethan didn't recognize. He watched Olivia navigate the conversation with practiced ease, deflecting questions about their relationship and her plans with the company. She was good at this, the performance, the careful words, the social chess. But he could see the exhaustion underneath, the effort it took to maintain the mask. Across the table, Andrew watched them both with the patience of a spider. Catherine stood when dessert was cleared, tapping her wine glass with a knife. The conversation died. I want to thank you all for coming this weekend, she said, her voice carrying effortlessly. As most of you know, we're here to celebrate a very special announcement. The engagement of my daughter Olivia to Andrew Blackwood, joining our families and our companies in a partnership that will benefit everyone. Ethan felt Olivia go rigid beside him. Of course, Catherine continued, her eyes finding Ethan. It seems Olivia has brought a guest. How unexpected. But I'm sure once she's had time to think clearly about her responsibilities and her future, she'll make the right decision. The decision her father would have wanted. The implication hung in the air like poison. Olivia set down her wine glass carefully. When she stood, every eye in the room turned to her. "Mother," she said quietly, "we need to talk. Privately." "There's nothing private about this, darling. These people are family. They have a right to know what's happening with the company they've invested in." "This isn't about the company." "Everything is about the company." Catherine's smile never wavered. "Your personal diversions don't change what needs to happen here. You have obligations, responsibilities. I have a life. You have a legacy, and you're throwing it away for a mechanic?" Catherine's voice sharpened just slightly. "Really, Olivia, I raised you better than this." Ethan felt the room's attention shift to him. He set down his fork and met Catherine's gaze steadily. "Mrs. Grant," he said, "with all due respect, your daughter is a person, not a chess piece. Maybe if you treated her like one, she wouldn't be looking for ways to escape." The silence that followed was absolute. Catherine's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Rage, carefully controlled. "How dare you?" "He's right," Olivia said. Everyone looked at her. "He's right," she repeated, louder this time. "I'm not a merger opportunity. I'm not a business deal. And I'm not marrying Andrew just because it's convenient for the company." Andrew stood slowly. "Olivia, you're upset. Why don't we discuss this tomorrow when—" "There's nothing to discuss. I'm not going through with the engagement. I'm sorry if that creates problems for the merger, but that's not my responsibility." "It is exactly your responsibility," Catherine said, her voice ice. "You are the CEO of Grant Industries. Every decision you make affects thousands of people. You don't get to be selfish." "Choosing my own life isn't selfish. It is when it costs everyone else theirs." The argument escalated, voices rising. Other people started interjecting, board members defending Catherine, relatives trying to mediate, Andrew attempting to calm things down while looking increasingly angry himself. Ethan sat in the middle of it all, watching Olivia fight a battle she'd probably been fighting her entire life. Finally, Catherine raised her hand for silence. When she spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. "Olivia, if you walk away from Andrew, if you embarrass this family in front of our business partners and our friends, there will be consequences. The board will vote. You will be removed. And everything you've built will be given to someone who understands the meaning of responsibility." "Then let them vote," Olivia said. She grabbed Ethan's hand and walked out of the dining room. They made it to the entrance hall before she stopped, breathing hard. Ethan could see her hands shaking. "That was—" she started. "Intense," Ethan finished. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. This was a mistake. I thought I could control it, but—" "Hey." He waited until she looked at him. "You stood up for yourself. That took guts. I just destroyed my career, probably burned every bridge I have with my family. And for what? A fake boyfriend and a weekend of rebellion?" She laughed, but it sounded broken. "I'm an idiot." "You're not. You're someone who's been trapped for a long time and finally decided to fight back. That's not stupid." Olivia looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since they'd arrived. "Why are you being nice to me? You're here for the money. You don't owe me anything else." "Maybe, but I've got a daughter who's going to grow up in a world full of people trying to tell her who to be and what to do with her life. I'd like her to have examples of women who don't take that shit. So yeah, I'm being nice. Deal with it." A small smile broke through her expression. "You're strange, Ethan Cole." "I get that a lot." Footsteps echoed from the dining room. Olivia's face tightened. "Come on," she said. I'll show you to your room. Tomorrow's going to be worse." She led him up a grand staircase to the second floor, down a hallway lined with family portraits. The guest room was larger than his entire apartment. 4-poster bed, its own sitting area, windows overlooking the gardens. "I'm next door if you need anything," Olivia said from the doorway. "And Ethan, thank you for tonight, for saying what you said. Anytime." She left, closing the door softly behind her. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed that probably cost more than his car and pulled out his phone. There was a text from Mrs. Patterson. "Mia's asleep. We made cookies. She's fine." He looked around the room, at the luxury that surrounded him, at the world he'd stepped into for $50,000 and a weekend of pretending. From downstairs he could hear raised voices, the argument continuing without them. He thought about Olivia's face when her mother had called her selfish, about the way she'd trembled with anger and hurt and determination. This was going to get worse before it got better. He could feel it. Ethan turned off the lights and lay in the expensive bed, staring at the ceiling, and wondered what he'd actually signed up for. Ethan woke to the sound of voices outside his door. Low, urgent, the kind of conversation people had when they didn't want to be overheard but couldn't quite manage to whisper. He checked his phone. 6:30 in the morning. Through the window, fog hung over the gardens like something out of a period drama. He got dressed and opened the door carefully. The hallway was empty, but the voices continued from somewhere downstairs. He followed them. The kitchen was massive, all marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Catherine Grant stood near the island with two men in expensive suits, their voices carrying despite the obvious effort to keep things quiet. "Cannot allow this to continue," one of the men was saying. "The optics alone are disastrous. If the press gets wind that she's involved with some—" "They won't," Catherine interrupted, "because we're going to handle this quietly. Thomas, call Marcus and have him look into Mr. Cole's background. Everything. I want to know what leverage we have by noon." Ethan stepped into the kitchen. All three turned to look at him. "Morning," he said. Catherine's smile appeared instantly, like a mask sliding into place. "Ethan, you're up early. I hope the accommodations were comfortable." "They were fine." "Wonderful. Coffee?" "Sure." She poured him a cup from a French press, her movements precise. The two men excused themselves, disappearing through a side door. Catherine handed Ethan the coffee and studied him with the same calculating expression she'd worn at dinner. "I owe you an apology," she said. "Last night I was harsh. This weekend has been stressful for everyone, and I let my emotions get the better of me." Ethan sipped the coffee. It was excellent. "Okay, I want you to understand something, Ethan. I don't dislike you. I don't even know you. What I dislike is the situation my daughter has put us all in. Olivia is brilliant, driven, everything I could have hoped for, but she's also impulsive. She makes decisions based on emotion rather than logic. Sometimes emotion is logic." Catherine's smile tightened. "A romantic notion, but in the business world, emotion is a liability. Olivia has responsibilities to this family, to the company, to the thousands of employees who depend on Grant Industries for their livelihoods. Her personal desires, however valid they may seem to her, cannot take precedence over those obligations. Even if those obligations are making her miserable, happiness is a luxury, not a right. Olivia will realize that eventually." "That's pretty bleak." "It's realistic." Catherine set down her own coffee cup. "Let me be direct with you, Ethan. I know why you're here. Olivia paid you. I don't blame you for taking the money. I'd probably do the same in your position. But this little arrangement can't continue. It's damaging to everyone involved. I signed a contract. Contracts can be renegotiated." She pulled out her phone, tapped something, and turned the screen toward him. "I'm prepared to offer you $100,000 to end this charade today. Tell Olivia it's not working out, get in your car, and go home. You'll still keep whatever she's already paid you. Consider it a bonus for your trouble." Ethan looked at the number. 100,000. Enough to buy the garage building outright. Enough to set up a college fund for Mia. Enough to change their lives completely. "That's a lot of money," he said. "It's a fraction of what this stunt is costing us. Andrew's people are already making noise about pulling out of the merger. The stock price dropped 2 points yesterday after rumors started circulating. Every hour this continues, more damage is done. To the company. To everyone, including Olivia. She may not see it now, but she's destroying her future." Catherine's voice softened, becoming almost gentle. "I'm trying to protect my daughter, Ethan. From herself, if necessary. Surely you can understand that impulse. You have a child of your own, don't you?" The shift was subtle but unmistakable. The hidden threat wrapped in concern. They'd already started digging into his background. "I do," Ethan said carefully. "Then you know how far a parent will go to keep their child safe, to keep them from making mistakes that can't be undone." She reached out and touched his arm lightly. "Take the money. Go home to your daughter. Let me handle Olivia. Everyone wins." Ethan set down his coffee cup. "Except Olivia. Olivia will be fine once she stops being stubborn." "Will she? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to force her into a life she doesn't want so you can close a business deal." Catherine's hand dropped. The warmth vanished from her expression like fog burning off in sunlight. You have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe not. But I know what it looks like when someone's trapped. And I know Olivia asked me to be here because she didn't have anyone else who'd stand with her. He met Catherine's gaze steadily. So thanks for the offer, but I'm good. You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first. He walked out of the kitchen, his heart pounding. Behind him, he heard Catherine make a phone call, her voice low and sharp. He'd just made an enemy of a very powerful woman. The smart thing would have been to take the money and run. But Ethan had never been particularly smart about these things. He found Olivia in the library, a massive room lined with books that probably hadn't been read in decades. She sat in a window seat overlooking the gardens, already dressed in dark jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back. She looked up when he entered. "You're up early," she said. "Your mom tried to buy me off." Olivia's expression didn't change. "How much?" "100,000. That's insulting. You're worth at least 200. A small smile. "What did you say?" "I said no." "Why?" Ethan crossed to the window and looked out at the manicured grounds. In the distance, he could see someone setting up tables on the terrace, probably for the engagement announcement lunch Catherine had planned. "Because I told you I'd do this, and I don't back out on my word. Also because your mom is kind of terrifying, and I don't like being pushed around." "She is terrifying. She always has been." Olivia drew her knees up to her chest. "My father was different, warmer. He actually asked me what I wanted sometimes. When he died, it was like all the air went out of the house. Mother took over everything, the company, the family, me. I thought if I worked hard enough, proved myself enough, she'd eventually see me as something other than an asset to be managed. But that's all I've ever been to her. That's not true." "It is. Last night proved it. She doesn't care that I'm unhappy. She cares that I'm inconvenient." Ethan sat down across from her. "So, what do you want to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to walk out right now, get in the car, and never come back. But the other part knows that if I do that, I lose everything. The company my father built, the work I've put in, my entire identity." She looked at him. "Do you ever feel like you're stuck between two terrible choices and there's no good answer?" "Every day," Ethan said. "When my wife died, I had to choose between keeping my job at the dealership or taking care of Mia. The job had benefits, stability, a future, but it also meant 60-hour weeks and putting my daughter in extended care. So I quit and opened the garage. Barely make enough to get by most months, but I'm there when Mia needs me. Some people think I made the wrong choice. Maybe I did, but it was my choice." "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes, when the bills pile up and I'm awake at 3 a.m. wondering how I'm going to make rent. But then Mia does something like bring home a drawing she made at school, and I remember why I did it. She's happy. She knows I'm there. That's worth more than stability." Olivia was quiet for a moment. "I don't have anything like that. No daughter waiting for me. No clear reason to walk away from all this except that I'm tired of being controlled." "That's reason enough." "Is it? What if I'm just being selfish? What if Mother's right, and I'm putting my personal feelings ahead of people's jobs and livelihoods?" "You're not responsible for other people's choices," Ethan said. "Your mother chose to tie the company's future to this merger. The board chose to go along with it. Andrew chose to participate in this arranged marriage situation. Those are their decisions. You're just choosing not to be the sacrifice that makes it all work." "That sounds nice, but the real world doesn't work that way." "Sure it does. You're just scared." Olivia's eyes flashed. "Of course I'm scared. I'm about to lose everything." "No, you're about to choose something different. There's a difference." Before she could respond, the library door opened. Andrew Blackwood stepped in, looking polished even at 7 in the morning. His smile was pleasant, but his eyes were hard. "Olivia, Ethan. Hope I'm not interrupting." "You are," Olivia said. "I'll be quick then." Andrew crossed to them, hands in his pockets. "I wanted to apologize for last night. Things got heated. I said some things I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." "Okay." "I also wanted to talk about where we go from here, privately, if possible." He glanced at Ethan. "Anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of Ethan," Olivia said. Andrew's jaw tightened slightly. "Fine. Olivia, this whole situation is a disaster. You know that. The merger talks have stalled. Your mother is furious. The board is talking about calling an emergency meeting. And for what? To prove a point? To prove I'm a person, not a commodity. No one thinks you're a commodity, but you're also not just any person. You're the CEO of a major corporation. Your decisions affect thousands of people. You can't just throw a tantrum because you don't like the way things are going. A tantrum? Olivia stood up, her voice dangerously quiet. You think this is a tantrum? I think you're acting impulsively. I think you're letting emotion cloud your judgment, and I think you're making a massive mistake that you're going to regret. Andrew's voice hardened. We had an agreement, Olivia. Our families, our companies. This merger was supposed to be the next evolution for both organizations. Backing out now doesn't just hurt the deal. It makes you look unstable, unreliable. Or it makes me look like someone with a spine. It makes you look like a child. Andrew stepped closer. You want to be taken seriously? You want respect? Then start acting like an adult. End this charade with your mechanic, apologize to your mother and the board, and we can still salvage this. We can move forward as planned. And if I don't, then you'll be removed as CEO by Monday. Catherine already has the votes. You know she does. Olivia didn't flinch. Then I guess I'll be removed. Andrew stared at her. You're really willing to throw away everything for him? He jerked his head toward Ethan. I'm willing to throw away everything to not be you, Olivia shot back. The words landed like a slap. Andrew's face flushed red. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. Both of you. You have no idea what you're dealing with. He walked out, slamming the door behind him. Olivia sat back down, her hand shaking. That went well. He's scared, Ethan said. He should be angry, not scared. Anger is just scared wearing a different mask. He's losing something he thought he had locked down. People get mean when they're cornered. Olivia looked at him. You're surprisingly insightful for a mechanic. I read a lot while waiting for oil changes. She laughed, actually laughed, the tension breaking for a moment. Thank you for being here, for not running when you had the chance. Day's not over yet. The rest of the morning passed in a strange kind of limbo. Olivia disappeared to make phone calls, leaving Ethan to wander the estate. He found a gym, a wine cellar, a conservatory filled with plants he couldn't name. He avoided the other guests, most of whom were gathered on the terrace drinking mimosas and pretending last night's argument hadn't happened. Around 11, a young woman found him in the gardens. She was maybe 25, wearing riding clothes and a friendly smile. You must be Ethan, she said, extending her hand. I'm Sophie Grant, Olivia's cousin. I've been dying to meet you. Why's that? Because you've done the impossible. You've gotten Olivia to actually stand up to Aunt Catherine. That's worth seeing. Sophie fell into step beside him as he walked. Don't worry, I'm not here to lecture you or try to buy you off. I think what you're doing is great. I'm not doing much. You're giving Olivia a reason to fight back. That's something. Sophie glanced toward the house. I grew up watching Aunt Catherine mold Olivia into the perfect corporate heir. It was like watching someone sculpt a statue, chipping away everything that didn't fit the vision. Olivia used to be fun, spontaneous. She'd sneak out to go dancing, skip boring dinner parties, actually laugh. Then Uncle Richard died and Catherine tightened the leash. Eventually, Olivia stopped trying to be anything other than what was expected. It's short bird, short much spades. Until now. Until you. Sophie studied him. What are you getting out of this? And don't tell me nothing, because nobody does something like this for free. She's paying me. How much? Ethan hesitated. Enough. Good. You should get paid. This family has more money than sense. Might as well put it to use helping someone. Sophie stopped walking. Word of advice, though. Be careful. Catherine doesn't lose. She can't afford to. If she thinks you're a real threat to her plans, she won't just try to buy you off. She'll destroy you. How? However she needs to. Leak things to the press. Manufacture scandals. Dig up dirt from your past and use it against you. She's done it before to people who got in her way, and she's very, very good at it. I don't have much dirt to dig up. Everyone has something, Ethan. Everyone. Sophie touched his arm gently. Just watch your back, and maybe watch Olivia's too. She's tough, but she's not used to fighting dirty. Catherine is. Sophie walked back toward the house, leaving Ethan alone in the gardens with a growing sense of unease. Lunch was served on the terrace at 1 p.m. Long tables covered in white linens, flower arrangements that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly income. Waiters in formal attire carrying trays of food that looked too artistic to eat. 60 people milled around, relatives, business associates, society friends, all of them pretending this was a normal, pleasant gathering. Ethan found Olivia near the edge of the terrace, a glass of white wine in her hand that she wasn't drinking. "You look miserable," he said quietly. "I am miserable. This is a nightmare." She gestured at the crowd. "Half these people are here to watch me fail. The other half are here to make sure the merger goes through regardless of what I want. And my mother keeps introducing me to interested parties who all happen to be business contacts who could benefit from seeing me married to Andrew. Want to leave? I wish I could. But the actual engagement announcement is in an hour. If I'm not here for it, Catherine wins by default. Everyone will assume I back down." Olivia took a sip of wine, made a face. "Why is expensive wine always terrible?" "Because rich people confuse expensive with good." She smiled despite herself. "You're very cynical for someone who fixes cars. You're very trusting for someone whose family is trying to sell her off." Touché. Catherine appeared at that moment, moving through the crowd like a shark through water. She stopped in front of them, her smile sharp. "Olivia, darling, I need you to come with me. There are some people I want you to meet." "I'm fine here, Mother." "It wasn't a request." Catherine's eyes flicked to Ethan. "Mr. Cole, would you mind giving us a moment? I need to speak with my daughter, privately." "Actually, I would mind," Ethan said. Catherine's expression hardened. "Excuse me? Olivia's an adult. If she wants to talk to you alone, she'll say so. Otherwise, I'm staying." For a moment, Catherine looked like she might argue. Then her smile returned, colder than before. "How chivalrous." "Very well, you can both come. We're going to have a family discussion." She led them away from the terrace, through the house, and into a wood-paneled study that smelled of leather and old money. Inside, 4 men waited. Board members, Ethan recognized 2 from breakfast. Andrew stood near the window, arms crossed. "Everyone's here," Catherine said, closing the door. "Good. Let's be clear about what's happening. The board has called an emergency meeting for Monday morning. The topic is Olivia's fitness to continue as CEO." "You can't do that," Olivia said. "We can, and we are. Your behavior this weekend has demonstrated a lack of judgment and professionalism that the board finds concerning. Combined with your declining performance metrics over the past quarter and your unwillingness to move forward with strategically important partnerships, there's ample cause for review." Declining performance metrics? The company grew 15% last quarter. In revenue, yes. But margins are down. Innovation pipeline is stagnant. And most importantly, you failed to secure the consolidated defense merger that would position us for the next decade of growth. Catherine's voice was calm, matter of fact. "The board has lost confidence in your leadership." One of the men, Thomas, the one from the kitchen, stepped forward. "Olivia, we don't want to do this. We all have tremendous respect for what you've accomplished. But the company must come first, always. If you're not willing to make the necessary sacrifices, we need leadership, that is." "Sacrifices," Olivia repeated. "You mean marrying Andrew. I mean doing what's best for Grant Industries. And what's best is selling me off like property." "No one is selling you off," Andrew said quietly. "This is a partnership, a merger of equals. Your family's company and mine working together. It makes sense on every level, strategic, financial, operational. The personal aspect is just a bonus. A bonus you negotiated with my mother without consulting me. Because we knew you'd be emotional about it. We were trying to protect you from having to make a difficult choice. By taking away my choice entirely," Catherine cut in before Andrew could respond. "Enough. This isn't a debate. Here are the facts. The board votes Monday. You will be removed unless you demonstrate a willingness to prioritize the company's interests. That means ending this ridiculous performance with Mr. Cole and moving forward with the engagement as planned. And if I refuse, then you'll be voted out, effective immediately. Andrew will be installed as interim CEO while we search for permanent replacement. You'll retain a board seat and your stock, but you'll have no operational authority. Is that what you want?" Olivia looked around the room at the faces watching her, men who'd worked with her father, who'd watched her grow up, who'd claimed to support her. None of them met her eyes. "You're all cowards," she said softly. "We're realists," Thomas said. Business isn't about feelings, Olivia. It's about results. And right now, your feelings are getting in the way of results. Ethan had stayed quiet through the whole exchange, watching the way they circled Olivia like wolves. But something in Thomas's tone, the casual dismissal, the condescension, finally broke through his restraint. "Can I ask a question?" he said. Everyone turned to look at him. "Mr. Cole, this doesn't concern you," Catherine said. "Sure it does. You're talking about Olivia like she's a problem to be solved instead of a person. I'm curious why none of you seem to think that's an issue." "Because it's not personal," Thomas said impatiently. "It's business." "Right, business. Which means what? You can treat people however you want as long as there's money involved? It means we make difficult decisions for the greater good." "Whose greater good? Because from where I'm standing, this seems pretty good for all of you and pretty terrible for Olivia." Andrew laughed, sharp and humorless. "You really have no idea how this works, do you? This isn't some garage where you can just follow your gut and hope things work out. This is a billion-dollar company with thousands of employees depending on us to make smart choices. Olivia's personal happiness doesn't outweigh their livelihoods." "Maybe it should," Ethan said. "That's naive. It's human." "This is a waste of time," Catherine said coldly. "Olivia, what's your answer? Are you going to be reasonable, or are we moving forward with the vote?" Olivia looked at her mother, then at the board members, then at Andrew. Her face was pale but composed. "I need time to think." "You have until the announcement at 3, Catherine said. "Either you stand beside Andrew and confirm the engagement, or you stand alone and lose everything. Choose wisely." She walked out. The board members followed, leaving just Ethan, Olivia, and Andrew in the study. Andrew moved toward Olivia, his expression softening. "Liv, please. This doesn't have to be a war. We can make this work. I know you're angry, but in time—" "Don't," Olivia said quietly. "Don't pretend this is about me and you. This is about the company. It's always been about the company." "That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you asked me what I wanted, what I needed? When did you ever see me as anything other than a stepping stone to more power?" Andrew's face hardened. "I've been nothing but patient with you, understanding. I've given you space, time, everything you asked for. And this is how you repay me? By humiliating me in front of everyone with some nobody you hired off the street? Get out," Olivia said. "We're not done talking about this." "Yes, we are. Get out before I have you thrown out." Andrew stared at her for a long moment, then turned and left without another word. Olivia sank into one of the leather chairs, her head in her hands. Ethan sat down across from her and waited. "I can't do this," she said finally. "I thought I could, but I can't. They're going to take everything. So let them." She looked up. "What?" "Let them take it. The company, the position, all of it. Walk away." "That's easy for you to say. You're not the one losing everything you've worked for." "No, I'm just the guy who already lost it. When Rachel died, I lost my job, my savings, my whole plan for the future. I had to start over from nothing with a kid depending on me. And you know what? It sucked. It was terrifying and hard, and I had no idea if I could actually do it. But I did, because I didn't have a choice." Ethan leaned forward. "You do have a choice, Olivia. You can keep fighting to hold on to something that's making you miserable, or you can let it go and build something new." "I don't know how to build something new. This is all I know." "Then you'll figure it out. You're smart, you're capable, and you've got more resources than most people ever dream of. You'll be fine." "You don't know that." "You're right, I don't. But I know that staying in a situation that's destroying you isn't sustainable. Eventually something's going to break. Better to control how it happens than let them do it to you." Olivia was quiet for a long time. Outside, voices drifted in from the terrace. Laughter, conversation, the sound of people enjoying a party that was really an execution waiting to happen. "If I walk away," she said slowly, "I'll have nothing. No job, no purpose, no identity. Everything I've built will be gone." "You'll have yourself. That's not nothing." "It feels like nothing, only because they've spent your whole life telling you it is. But it's not. You're not just a CEO or a grant or a merger opportunity. You're a person who deserves to make her own choices. That's worth something." Olivia looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Why do you care? You barely know me. You're here for the money. You don't owe me this." Maybe I'm tired of watching people get pushed around by bullies in expensive suits. Or maybe I just don't like your mother. Ethan stood up. Either way, you've got about 2 hours before you have to make a choice. I suggest you figure out what you actually want, not what they've told you to want. He left her there and walked back out to the terrace, where the party was still going, oblivious to the war being waged inside. The terrace had filled with more guests by the time Ethan returned. Someone had set up a small stage near the garden entrance, complete with a microphone and sound system. White chairs arranged in neat rows faced it. This wasn't just a casual announcement, it was a performance, carefully orchestrated. Ethan found a spot near the back, away from the clusters of people making small talk. A waiter offered him champagne. He took it, but didn't drink. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson with a photo of Mia covered in flour, grinning. They'd been baking again. He stared at the picture, at his daughter's joy, and felt the weight of what he'd gotten himself into. "You look like you're contemplating running," Sophie said, appearing beside him. "Thought crossed my mind. Can't say I'd blame you. This is about to get ugly." She nodded toward the house. "Aunt Catherine's been on the phone for the last hour. She's calling in favors, making promises, probably threatening people. When she gets like this, nothing stops her." "What happens if Olivia doesn't go along with it?" "They'll destroy her. Not physically, but professionally, socially. They'll make sure everyone in their circle knows she's unstable, unreliable, a liability. Within 6 months, she won't be able to get a job at a startup, much less another CEO position. That's how this world works. You're either in or you're out, and once you're out, you stay out." "That's pretty sick." "That's power. People who have it will do anything to keep it." Sophie looked at him. "You really care about her, don't you?" "I barely know her." "That's not what I asked." Ethan watched the crowd. "I care about people not getting crushed by systems designed to control them, whether that's Olivia or anyone else. You're either very noble or very stupid. Probably both." At 2:45, Catherine emerged from the house. She'd changed into a pale blue dress that probably cost more than Ethan's car, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She moved through the crowd like a queen, greeting guests, smiling, playing the gracious host. No one watching would have guessed she'd spent the last hour orchestrating her daughter's public humiliation. Andrew appeared next, looking composed in a dark suit. He found Catherine, exchanged a few quiet words, then took up a position near the stage. His eyes scanned the crowd, stopped on Ethan. The look he gave was pure contempt. 3:00 came. No Olivia. Catherine checked her watch, her smile never faltering. A few guests started murmuring. Andrew shifted his weight, uncomfortable for the first time since Ethan had met him. 5 after 3. Still no Olivia. Catherine's smile began to tighten at the edges. She whispered something to one of the staff members, who hurried into the house. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. People were checking their phones, glancing toward the house, sensing something was wrong. 10 after 3. Catherine's composure cracked slightly. She gestured sharply to another staff member. More whispers, more concerned looks. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Had Olivia left? Just walked away without telling anyone? Part of him hoped she had. The other part knew what that would cost her. At 3:15, Olivia appeared. She walked out of the house alone, wearing the same jeans and sweater from earlier. No dress, no makeup adjustment, no performance. Just herself. The crowd went quiet as she crossed the terrace, her footsteps steady despite the way her hands shook slightly at her sides. Catherine intercepted her before she reached the stage. "Where have you been?" Catherine hissed, quiet enough that only those nearby could hear. "You're 15 minutes late. Everyone's waiting." "I know." "Then get up there and make the announcement. Andrew's ready. Just say what we discussed and this will all be over." "No." The word was quiet but absolute. Catherine's face went very still. "Olivia, do not do this. I'm not announcing an engagement, Mother. I'm not marrying Andrew, and I'm not letting you control my life anymore. If you walk up on that stage and embarrass this family, you'll remove me as CEO. I know you've made that very clear." Olivia's voice was steady now, stronger. "So do it. Call your vote. Install Andrew or whoever else you want. But I'm done playing along." Catherine grabbed her arm. "You ungrateful child. Do you have any idea what your father sacrificed to build this company? What I've sacrificed to keep it going? And you're throwing it away for what? A mechanic?"
Some fantasy about freedom? I'm throwing it away because it was never mine to begin with. You've been running it through me for 4 years, pretending I had control while making every real decision yourself. Well, congratulations, Mother. Now you can stop pretending.
Olivia pulled her arm free and walked toward the stage. Catherine stood frozen, her face pale with rage. Andrew started forward, but one look from Catherine stopped him. Olivia stepped up to the microphone, every eye on the terrace locked onto her. She took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried clearly. Thank you all for coming this weekend. I know you're here expecting an announcement about my engagement to Andrew Blackwood and the merger between Grant Industries and Consolidated Defense. She paused. That announcement isn't going to happen. A ripple of shock went through the crowd. People leaned forward. Phones appeared, cameras already recording. Instead, I want to be clear about something. I will not be marrying Andrew. I will not be facilitating this merger. And I will not be allowing my personal life to be dictated by business interests anymore. Olivia's hands gripped the sides of the podium. For the last 4 years, I've tried to be the CEO my mother and the board wanted me to be. I've made decisions based on what was good for the company, not what was good for me. I've sacrificed relationships, health, any semblance of a personal life, all in service of Grant Industries. And I'm done.
Olivia, stop this, Catherine called out, her voice sharp. Olivia ignored her. My mother and the board have made it clear that if I don't comply with their wishes, I'll be removed as CEO. So I'm making this easy for everyone. I resign, effective immediately. The crowd erupted. People were standing now, talking over each other. Catherine pushed through toward the stage. Andrew looked like he'd been slapped. Furthermore, Olivia continued, her voice rising above the noise, I'm calling for an independent audit of Grant Industries' financial practices over the last 3 years. Specifically, I'm requesting investigation into several contracts that were approved without proper oversight and payments made to offshore accounts that I was repeatedly told not to question. Catherine reached the stage. You have no authority to call for anything. You just resigned. I'm still a major shareholder, and as a shareholder, I have every right to request an audit if I suspect financial irregularities. Olivia looked directly at her mother. Which I do. There are no irregularities. You're making wild accusations because you're emotional and irrational. Am I? Then you won't mind an independent review proving that. Olivia turned back to the crowd. I've already contacted the SEC and provided them with documentation of several questionable transactions. They'll be conducting their own investigation starting Monday. The terrace descended into chaos. Board members were shouting questions. Business partners were making urgent phone calls. Reporters, and there were clearly reporters in the crowd, were typing frantically on their phones. Catherine's face had gone from pale to red. She climbed onto the stage, ignoring the microphone, and confronted Olivia directly. How dare you, she said, her voice shaking with rage. How dare you accuse me of corruption? I've given everything to this company. Everything. While you've been playing CEO, I've been making the difficult decisions, handling the problems you were too naive or too weak to deal with. Like funneling money to dummy corporations? Like approving contracts with vendors who kicked back payments to accounts you control? Like using company resources to pay for personal expenses and hiding it under legitimate business costs? You have no proof of any of that. I have 3 years of financial records that say otherwise. Records you thought I wasn't paying attention to because you kept me so busy playing figurehead. Olivia's voice was cold now, surgical. I've been reviewing them for the last 6 months, Mother. Every transaction, every approval, every payment. And I've found enough irregularities to keep investigators busy for years. You're lying. Am I? Then let's have the audit. Let's bring in outside investigators and let them examine everything. If you're innocent, you have nothing to worry about. Catherine's hand shot out and slapped Olivia across the face. The crack of it echoed across the silent terrace. Olivia's head snapped to the side. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ethan was pushing through the crowd, climbing onto the stage. He stepped between them, facing Catherine. That's enough, he said quietly. This is family business. You have no right. I have every right. Someone needs to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. Not just bad business or poor judgment, wrong. You're trying to control your daughter's entire life because you're so desperate to maintain power that you've forgotten she's a human being. Catherine's eyes blazed. You know nothing about my family, nothing about what we've built or what it takes to maintain it.
You're a nobody who wandered in here for money, and now you think you understand our world. You don't. Maybe not, but I understand when someone's being abused, and that's what this is. You've been emotionally manipulating and controlling Olivia her entire life, and now that she's finally fighting back, you're panicking because you're losing your grip. Get off my property. Gladly. Ethan turned to Olivia. You coming? She touched her face where Catherine had hit her, her eyes wet, but her expression set. Yes. They walked off the stage together. The crowd parted as they moved through, everyone staring but no one speaking. Catherine stood alone at the microphone, her face a mask of rage and something else, something that looked almost like fear. Andrew blocked their path near the garden entrance. You've made a serious mistake, Olivia, he said. Both of you. You think this is over? It's just beginning. Catherine will come after you with everything she has. The company, the lawyers, the media. She'll destroy you. Let her try, Olivia said. And you, Andrew turned to Ethan. You think you're a hero? You just helped her blow up her life. When she's broke and unemployable and realizes what she's lost, she's going to blame you for it. Maybe. Or maybe she'll thank me for helping her get out before you people destroyed her completely. Andrew's smile was thin and sharp. We'll see. He stepped aside. Ethan and Olivia walked past him, through the gardens, around the side of the house to where the cars were parked. Olivia's hands were shaking so badly she couldn't get her keys out of her pocket. Ethan took them gently and unlocked the SUV. They got in. Olivia sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. Ethan started the engine and drove down the long driveway, past the iron gates that swung open automatically, onto the main road. They'd gone maybe 5 miles before Olivia spoke. I just destroyed my entire life. Yeah, you did. The audit. I don't know if there's actually enough evidence to prove anything. I might have just been bluffing. Were you? I don't know. Maybe. I found some things that looked suspicious, but I'm not a forensic accountant. It could be nothing. It could be legitimate business practices I just don't understand. She laughed, a broken sound. I just accused my mother of corruption in front of half the business elite of the state based on suspicions and incomplete information. Sounds about right. This isn't funny, Ethan. If I'm wrong, I've committed slander. If I'm right, I've just declared war on my own mother. Either way, I'm finished. You're not finished. You're just starting over. Starting over as what? An unemployed executive with no references and a reputation for being unstable? Who's going to hire me after this? Who says you need to be hired? Start your own company. Consult. Do something completely different. You've got options. I don't have anything. I just walked away from everything I am. Ethan pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face her. Listen to me. You're not your job. You're not your mother's daughter or the Grant Industries CEO or any of the other labels people have stuck on you. You're Olivia, and whoever that is, she's enough. She's always been enough. You just forgot because everyone around you kept telling you otherwise. Olivia's face crumpled. She started crying, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Ethan sat there, not touching her, just letting her break apart in the passenger seat of her own car on the side of a country road. It took a long time for the crying to stop. When it finally did, Olivia wiped her face with her sleeve and took a shaky breath. I don't know what to do now, she said quietly. Right now, we drive back to the city. You get some sleep. Tomorrow you figure out the next step. And the day after that, the next one. That's how this works. One step at a time. I don't even know what the next step is. Then we'll figure it out together. Olivia looked at him. Why are you helping me? The job's over. You don't have to stay. I know. So why? Ethan thought about how to answer that, about Mia and the life he'd built for her after losing Rachel, about knowing what it felt like to have everything fall apart and having to reconstruct yourself from the pieces, about seeing someone trapped and remembering that he'd once been trapped too. Because someone should, he said finally. And I'm here, so might as well be me. They sat there for another minute in silence. Then Ethan pulled back onto the road and drove them toward the city, toward whatever came next, while behind them the world Olivia had known burned to the ground. The drive took 2 hours. Olivia spent most of it on her phone, dealing with the aftermath. Her inbox was flooded, messages from board members, reporters, business contacts, even a few from relatives. She ignored most of them. She called her lawyer and told him to prepare for both the audit request and likely legal action from Catherine. She called her accountant and had him freeze her access to several company accounts before Catherine could lock her out. She was methodical about it, working through the practical steps even though Ethan could see her hands still shaking. When they reached the city, Olivia directed him to a high-rise in the financial district. Her apartment was on the 28th floor, all glass and modern furniture and the kind of sterile perfection that suggested no one actually lived there. "You want to come up?" she asked. "I should get home. Mia's probably driving Mrs. Patterson crazy by now." "Right, of course." Olivia unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't move. "Ethan, I owe you the rest of your payment. Let me transfer it now." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. We had a deal. You held up your end even when things went sideways, especially when things went sideways." She pulled out her phone. "What's your account information?" He gave it to her. A moment later, his phone buzzed with the notification. $25,000. The second half of their agreement. "Thank you," Olivia said, "for everything. For standing with me when you didn't have to. For saying the things I couldn't say myself. For being honest when everyone else was lying. You don't need to thank me." "I do. Because you're right. I was trapped. I've been trapped my whole life and didn't even realize it because the cage was comfortable. You helped me see that. Whatever happens next, that was worth it." She leaned over and kissed his cheek, quick and soft. Then she was out of the car and gone, disappearing into the building before Ethan could process what had just happened. He sat there for a moment, then drove home. Mrs. Patterson met him at the door, Mia asleep on her shoulder. "Long weekend?" she asked. "You could say that. Everything go okay?" "Define okay." She smiled. "That kind of weekend." "Well, this one was an angel. We made cookies, watched movies, read about 6 books. She missed you, though. Kept asking when you'd be back." Ethan took Mia carefully, feeling her warm weight settle against him. "Thanks for watching her, Nora." "Anytime. You know that." After Mrs. Patterson left, Ethan carried Mia to her room and tucked her into bed. She stirred slightly, mumbled something about cookies, then fell back into deep sleep. He stood there watching her for a long moment, thinking about Olivia's world of contracts and mergers and family warfare, and his world of school fees and grocery shopping and bedtime stories. They were so far apart, those worlds. He'd crossed into hers for a weekend, but he didn't belong there. He never would. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered it anyway. "Mr. Cole?" Catherine Grant's voice was ice. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do." "Oh, but we do. You see, I've spent the last few hours learning everything I can about you, your financial situation, your daughter's school, the garage you're barely managing to keep afloat. It's all very precarious." Ethan's chest tightened. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something. What my daughter did today was a declaration of war. And in war, there are casualties. She's too emotional right now to think clearly, but you're pragmatic. You understand consequences. Get to the point. The point is that Olivia's accusations are going to trigger investigations that will cost millions in legal fees and damage the company's reputation. All because she's having a tantrum. I'm going to fight those investigations, and I'm going to win. And when I do, I'm going to make sure everyone who helped her regrets it. I didn't help her with the audit. I didn't even know about it. You helped her defy me. You encouraged this rebellion. That's enough." Catherine's voice was venomous now. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Olivia tomorrow and tell her this was all a mistake. You're going to convince her to retract her statements, apologize to the board, and drop the audit request. If you do that, I'll consider this matter closed. And if I don't, then I'll make your life very difficult, Mr. Cole. I have resources you can't imagine. I can make sure your garage loses its lease. I can make sure no bank will give you a loan. I can even make sure Child Protective Services takes a very close look at whether you're providing adequate care for your daughter." She paused, letting that sink in. "You're a single father with limited income and a dangerous job. These things get reported all the time. Sometimes they're substantiated. Sometimes children end up in foster care while investigations proceed. It would be tragic." Ethan's hand clenched around the phone. "You wouldn't. Try me. I've protected my family and my company from bigger threats than you. I will do whatever is necessary." Her voice softened, becoming almost gentle. I don't want to hurt you, Ethan. I don't want to hurt your daughter. But I will if you force my hand. All you have to do is convince Olivia to stand down. Tell her you made a mistake, that you can't support her in this. She'll listen to you, and then we can all move on.
She'll know I'm lying. She'll be hurt, but she'll be alive. She'll still have resources, connections, a future. Keep pushing me, and I'll make sure she has nothing. Neither will you. Catherine's voice hardened again. You have 24 hours to decide. Help me end this quietly, or I'll end it loudly and you'll both suffer. Your choice. The line went dead. Ethan stood in Mia's doorway, watching his daughter sleep, and felt the walls closing in.
He couldn't go back to Olivia and tell her to give up, not after watching her finally find the courage to stand up for herself. But he also couldn't risk Catherine following through on her threats. Mia was everything to him. If there was even a chance Catherine could take her away, his phone buzzed again. A text from Olivia. Thank you for today. I know this wasn't what you signed up for. I hope the payment helps with whatever you needed it for. Ethan stared at the message. $50,000 sat in his account now, enough to solve his immediate problems, enough to buy a little security. All he had to do was walk away, let Olivia fight her battles alone, and keep his head down. He thought about Catherine's voice on the phone, the casual cruelty of threatening a child to control her mother's behavior, the absolute certainty that she would win because she always won. He thought about Olivia's face when Catherine had slapped her, the years of manipulation and control that had led to that moment, the courage it had taken to finally say no. He thought about Mia growing up in a world where people like Catherine made the rules and everyone else just had to accept it. Then he texted back, "Don't retract anything. Stand your ground. I've got your back." The response came almost immediately. "Are you sure? This is going to get worse." I'm sure. Let it get worse. We'll deal with it. Ethan put his phone away and went to check the locks on his doors. If Catherine wanted a fight, she'd get one. He just hoped he'd made the right choice. In the morning, everything exploded. The story had hit the news overnight. Grant Industries' CEO resigns amid family conflict ran one headline. Corporate scandal brewing at tech giant read another. By 7 a.m., reporters were calling Ethan's phone, numbers he didn't know they had. By 8, there were 2 vans parked outside his garage with camera crews setting up. Marcus, his part-time guy, showed up looking confused. "Boss, what the hell's going on? Why are there news people outside?"
Long story. Take the day off. I'll pay you anyway. You sure? Yeah. This is going to be a mess. No point dragging you into it. After Marcus left, Ethan called Mrs. Patterson and asked if she could keep Mia for another day. She agreed without asking questions, bless her. Then he locked the garage doors and waited.
The first reporter knocked at 9:30. Ethan didn't answer. The second tried calling his cell. He declined. By noon, there were 5 news vans outside, and his phone had received 43 calls from unknown numbers. His phone finally rang with a number he recognized. Olivia. "Are you okay?" she asked immediately. "Define okay." "There are reporters camped outside my garage asking about our relationship." "I know, I'm so sorry. I didn't think they'd track you down this fast." "It's fine, I'm not talking to them anyway. How are you holding up?" "The SEC contacted me this morning. They're opening a preliminary inquiry based on the information I provided. My lawyer says that's good. It means they think there's enough substance to investigate. But Mother's already released a statement calling my accusations baseless and suggesting I'm having a mental health crisis." Of course she did. It gets better. The board called an emergency meeting for tomorrow to formally remove me and discuss legal action for defamation. Andrew's people are floating the idea that you and I orchestrated this whole thing as some kind of extortion scheme. That's creative. That's terrifying. Ethan, if they can make that stick, we could both face criminal charges. They won't make it stick. There's no evidence because it's not true. Evidence doesn't always matter when you're fighting people with unlimited resources. Olivia's voice cracked slightly. Maybe you should distance yourself from this. Put out a statement saying you were just hired help, that you didn't know anything about the family issues. It might protect you. No. Ethan, I said no. I told you I had your back and I meant it. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Olivia was quiet for a moment. Why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything. The job's done. You got paid. You could just walk away. Already had this conversation with myself. Decided walking away was the wrong move. Even if it costs you everything?
I've lost everything before. Survived it then, I'll survive it now. You're either very brave or very stupid.
Getting that a lot lately? Ethan looked out the window at the news vans. Listen, we need to be smart about this. They're going to try to control the narrative. We need to get ahead of it. How? You tell your story, all of it, not through lawyers or corporate statements. You, directly. Let people see what actually happened. My lawyer would kill me. Your lawyer wants you to stay quiet
and let Catherine's legal team bury you in motions and delays. That's a losing strategy. You go public, you tell the truth, you make them respond to you instead of the other way around. That's risky. Everything's risky at this point. Might as well control some of it. Olivia thought about it. There's a reporter I know, Christina Meyer from the Chronicle. She's fair, doesn't sensationalize. If I was going to talk to anyone, it would be her.
Then call her. Set it up. And Olivia? Yeah? Tell the whole truth, not the polished version. The messy, complicated, human version. That's what people will connect with. After the call ended, Ethan sat in his quiet garage and wondered if he'd just given good advice or terrible advice. With Catherine Grant, it was hard to tell. She had money, power, connections, all the tools to destroy someone who got in her way. But she'd underestimated one thing. Olivia had finally stopped being afraid, and that, Ethan suspected, was going to change everything. The interview went live 48 hours later. Ethan watched it on his laptop in the garage office, the door locked against the reporters still lingering outside. Christina Meyer had done exactly what Olivia hoped, let her talk without interruption, asked hard questions without being cruel, and presented the whole story without editorial spin. Olivia sat across from Christina in what looked like a coffee shop, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. No corporate armor, no carefully styled hair, just her, looking tired and determined. My mother slapped me in front of 60 people because I refused to marry a man she'd chosen for business purposes, Olivia said on screen. That's when I realized I'd never actually been running the company. I'd been performing a role she'd written for me, and the moment I deviated from the script, she tried to destroy me. Christina leaned forward. Those are serious accusations. Your mother's legal team has issued a statement suggesting you're experiencing emotional distress and making false claims. Of course they have. That's how this works. When women challenge power structures, we're called hysterical, unstable, emotional. But I'm not making false claims. I have documentation, bank records, email chains, evidence of financial irregularities that I've turned over to federal investigators. Olivia's voice was steady, calm. I'm not doing this because I'm upset or having a breakdown. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, even if it costs me everything. And the mechanic? Ethan Cole. Your mother suggests he's manipulating you, taking advantage of your vulnerability. Olivia smiled for the first time in the interview. Ethan is the only person in my life who's treated me like a human being instead of an asset. He's been honest when everyone else was lying. He stood by me when he had every reason to walk away. If that's manipulation, I'll take it over the so-called support I got from my family. The interview continued for another 20 minutes. Olivia laid out everything, the arranged engagement, the board's threats, the financial irregularities she'd discovered, Catherine's attempts to buy Ethan's compliance. She named names. She provided specifics. She burned every bridge with clear eyes and steady hands. When it ended, Ethan's phone started ringing immediately. He ignored it. 10 minutes later, someone pounded on the garage door. Mr. Cole, this is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Fraud Division. We need to speak with you about your involvement with Olivia Grant and Grant Industries. Ethan opened the door. A woman in her 40s stood there with a badge and 2 uniformed officers behind her. The news crews captured everything. Am I under arrest? He asked. Not yet, but we have questions. You can answer them here or come downtown. Here's fine. They sat in his office, cramped and cluttered and smelling of motor oil. Detective Martinez opened a folder and pulled out several photographs. Bank transfers, phone records, a timeline someone had constructed showing his interactions with Olivia. Walk me through how you met Ms. Grant, Martinez said. Ethan told the truth. All of it. The proposal, the contract, the $50,000, the weekend at the estate. He left nothing out. Martinez took notes. So you were paid to pretend to be her boyfriend? Yes. And at any point during this arrangement, Did Ms. Grant discuss corporate finances with you? Mention specific accounts or transactions? No, I didn't even know about the audit thing until she announced it publicly. She never involved me in any of that. But you encouraged her to defy her family. I encouraged her to stand up for herself. There's a difference. Martinez studied him.
Mr. Cole, I'm going to be direct with you. Catherine Grant's legal team is building a case that you and her daughter conspired to extort money from Grant Industries. They're suggesting you manipulated a vulnerable woman into making false accusations so you could profit from the resulting chaos. That's insane.
Is it? You're a man with serious financial problems. Your garage is barely breaking even. Your daughter's school fees are overdue. Then suddenly a wealthy CEO shows up offering you money, and within a week you're helping her destroy her family's company. Martinez leaned back. From the outside, it looks pretty suspicious. From the outside, a lot of things look different than they are.
So help me understand the inside. Why are you still involved? You got paid. The job's done. Why not just walk away? Ethan met her gaze. Because Catherine Grant threatened my daughter, said she'd call CPS, make trouble, do whatever it took to force me to abandon Olivia. I don't respond well to threats, especially when they involve my kid. Martinez's expression shifted slightly. She threatened your child.
Over the phone. Night after the engagement announcement fell apart. Told me I had 24 hours to convince Olivia to back down or she'd make my life hell. You have proof of this call? Phone records would show she called me, but no recording, if that's what you mean.
Martinez made a note.
That's useful. Threats against witnesses tend to make prosecutors interested.
She closed her folder. Here's where we are. The SEC is investigating Ms. Grant's claims about financial irregularities. My department is investigating the extortion allegations against you and Ms. Grant. Right now, everything's preliminary. But I'll be honest, Catherine Grant has significant resources and connections. If she wants to make trouble for you, she can.
She's already making trouble. It can get worse, much worse. Martinez stood. My advice? Get a lawyer. A good one. And keep your distance from Olivia Grant until this shakes out. Association with her is only going to make you look more complicit. After they left, Ethan sat alone in his office and tried to figure out how his life had gotten so completely derailed. A week ago, his biggest problem was making rent. Now he was caught in the middle of a corporate war with federal investigators asking questions and reporters camped outside. His phone rang. Olivia. The police were here, he said. I know, they questioned me too. My lawyer says they're just gathering information, that we haven't been charged with anything. Yet,
Olivia agreed. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to get dragged into this. Catherine's trying to make you the villain because she can't attack me directly without looking worse. If you need to distance yourself, stop offering me ways out. I'm not taking them. But the police are doing their job. They'll investigate, they'll find nothing, and eventually this part will go away. What won't go away is Catherine trying to destroy you. How's that going, by the way? Olivia laughed, bitter and exhausted. Spectacularly. The board voted this morning to remove me from all positions, revoke my access to company systems, and pursue legal action for defamation and breach of fiduciary duty. My corporate credit cards are canceled. My company car's been repossessed. They're even trying to claw back my last 2 years of salary. Can they do that? With enough lawyers, they can try to do anything. Whether they'll succeed is another question. She paused. The good news is the SEC investigation is moving forward. They've subpoenaed financial records going back 5 years. Christina's article generated enough attention that they can't just bury it quietly. So you're winning. I'm surviving. There's a difference. Ethan heard the exhaustion in her voice. Where are you staying? Still at your apartment? For now, though I'm pretty sure I'll lose it when they come after my assets. It's company-owned housing, technically. They've already sent notices that I need to vacate within 30 days. Come stay with me. The words were out before Ethan fully thought them through. Silence stretched on the other end of the line. What? Olivia said finally. You need a place to stay. I've got a spare room. It's not fancy, but it's safe, and Catherine's people won't think to look for you there. Ethan, I can't impose on you like that. You have a daughter, a life. You don't need me disrupting everything further. Everything's already disrupted. Might as well be disrupted together. He meant it as a joke, but it came out serious.
Besides, if we're both targets, we're better off in the same place. Easier to watch each other's backs. I don't know. Think about it. Offer stands if you need it. 3 days later, Olivia showed up at his apartment with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box of personal items. She looked smaller somehow, less polished. Her hair was in a ponytail. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. The corporate CEO was gone, replaced by someone who looked lost. Mia answered the door before Ethan could. "Hi," Mia said, staring up at Olivia with open curiosity. "Are you the lady from Dad's work?" "Sort of," Olivia said. "I'm Olivia."
I'm Mia. Do you like cookies? Mrs. Patterson and I made some yesterday, but Dad says I can't eat them all myself. I love cookies. Mia grabbed Olivia's hand and pulled her inside, chattering about cookie flavors and whether chocolate chip or oatmeal raisin was superior. Ethan watched Olivia's face, the surprise, then something that looked like relief, as if she'd been expecting judgment and found acceptance instead.
He showed her to the spare room, which was really just a glorified storage closet with a futon and a desk covered in Mia's art projects. "It's not much," he said. "It's perfect." Olivia set down her suitcases and looked around at the cramped space. "Thank you for letting me stay, for not giving up on me when everyone else did." "You didn't give up on yourself. That's the part that matters." Over the next week, they fell into an uneasy routine. Olivia spent most of her time on the phone with lawyers or reviewing documents for the SEC investigation. Ethan went back to work at the garage, though business had dropped off significantly. People were nervous about the media attention. Mia, oblivious to the larger drama, treated Olivia like an interesting new aunt who appeared at dinner and helped with homework. "Your daughter's amazing," Olivia said one night after Mia had gone to bed. They sat in Ethan's tiny living room drinking cheap wine and watching the news coverage of the Grant Industries scandal. "She's so confident, so sure of herself. She's 8. Everything's simple when you're 8.
I wish I'd been like that. I was always trying to be perfect, always aware of expectations. Olivia swirled her wine. I don't think I was ever just a kid. I was always Catherine Grant's daughter, Richard Grant's heir, the future of the company, never just Olivia. It's not too late to figure out who that is. Isn't it? I'm 30 years old, unemployed, possibly facing criminal charges. Everything I thought defined me is gone. I don't know who I am without it. Then you get to decide. That's the scary part, but it's also the good part. Olivia looked at him. How are you so calm about everything? Your life's been turned upside down too. Reporters following you, police questioning you, your business suffering, but you just keep going like it's all manageable. It is manageable. I've been through worse. When your wife died. Yeah, that was a mess. I was working 60 hours a week at the dealership, trying to keep up with bills and take care of a 4-year-old who didn't understand why her mom wasn't coming home. I'd wake up every morning feeling like I was drowning. But I kept showing up, kept putting one foot in front of the other. Eventually, it got easier. Not good, exactly, but easier. Ethan took a sip of wine. This thing with your family, it's bad, but it's not the worst thing that could happen. You're alive. You're safe. You're fighting back. That's more than a lot of people get. I envy your perspective. Give it time. You'll find your own. The breakthrough came 2 weeks later. Olivia was in the spare room when Ethan heard her shout. He ran in, ready for trouble, and found her staring at her laptop screen with an expression of shock. What happened? The SEC found it. Everything I suspected but couldn't prove. She turned the laptop toward him. The screen showed an official letter on government letterhead. Catherine's been running a shell company scheme for 3 years, funneling Grant Industries money into fake vendors, then transferring it to offshore accounts she controls. They've identified over $40 million in fraudulent transactions. $40 million? That's just what they found so far. They think it goes deeper. Olivia's hands were shaking. She's been systematically stealing from the company while lecturing me about responsibility and duty. The entire time she was trying to force me into that merger, she was robbing us blind. Does the board know? They're being briefed today, along with a recommendation for criminal charges. Olivia stood up, pacing the small room. This changes everything. Catherine can't come after me for defamation if I was telling the truth. The board can't justify removing me if they were covering for her corruption.
Everything she's done to me, every threat, every manipulation, it's about to come crashing down. But the vindication didn't feel the way Olivia thought it would. That night, while Mia slept and Ethan worked on fixing a carburetor at the kitchen table, Olivia sat across from him looking hollow. "I thought I'd feel relieved," she said. "Knowing I was right, knowing she'll face consequences. But I just feel empty." "That's normal." "Is it?" "Because I keep thinking about how she's my mother, how twisted things must be for her to steal from her own company while trying to control my life. What does that say about our family? About me? It says your mother made bad choices. Doesn't say anything about you." "Doesn't it? I worked beside her for 4 years and never saw it. I was so focused on proving myself that I missed what was happening right in front of me. What kind of CEO does that make me?" "The human kind. You can't see everything. Nobody can." Olivia was quiet for a moment. "The board called earlier. They want to offer me my position back, full reinstatement, public apology, compensation for damages. They're acting like none of this was their fault, like they were victims of Catherine's deception too." "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to prove I can run that company better than she ever did. But another part of me remembers what it felt like. The constant pressure, the performance, the feeling that I was never quite enough. Do I really want to go back to that?" Ethan set down the carburetor. "What do you want to do? Not what you should do or what makes sense. What do you actually want?" Olivia looked at him, then around the cramped kitchen with its peeling linoleum and mismatched chairs. "This is going to sound crazy. Most good things do. I want to stay here, in this apartment, with you and Mia. I want to wake up without a schedule and figure out what interests me instead of what's expected. I want to be someone other than Catherine Grant's daughter or the Grant Industries CEO. I just want to be Olivia, whoever that is." "Then do it." "It's not that simple." "Sure it is. Tell the board no. Stay here until you figure out your next move. Take some time to just exist without all the pressure. I can't live off you indefinitely. You're barely making ends meet as it is. So get a job, something normal, waitressing or retail or whatever. Something that pays rent and doesn't require you to be anyone other than yourself." Olivia laughed. "Can you imagine me waiting tables? Why not? You're smart, organized, good with people when you're not being a corporate robot. You'd probably be great at it." "You're serious?" "Completely. You spent your whole life being groomed for something you didn't choose. Maybe it's time to choose something for yourself, even if it's small, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else." Olivia stared at him. "You really think I could do that? Just walk away from everything and start over?" "I know you could. Question is whether you want to." The answer came 3 days later when Olivia called the board and declined their offer. She released a statement through her lawyer saying she appreciated the opportunity, but felt the company needed new leadership unburdened by the family's history. She wished them well and asked for privacy as she pursued other interests. Catherine was arrested 2 days after that. The news showed footage of her being led out of the Grant estate in handcuffs, her face composed but her eyes furious. Charges included wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, and securities fraud. If convicted, she faced 30 years in prison. Olivia watched the broadcast in silence, her face unreadable. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "I don't know. Is it wrong that I feel guilty? She's my mother. Even after everything, seeing her like that, it's not wrong, it's human. She destroyed people's lives, stole millions, tried to control me like property. I should hate her." "Maybe. But love and hate aren't that simple. You can recognize what she did was terrible and still grieve what you've lost. Both things can be true." Olivia wiped her eyes. "How'd you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I just know that feelings are messy, and that's okay." Mia came running in from her room, oblivious to the heavy moment. "Olivia, can you help me with my math homework? Dad's terrible at fractions." "Hey," Ethan protested. "I'm okay at fractions." "You told me yesterday that 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 2/6. "That's technically correct. Mrs. Patterson says it's 2/3 when you add them." Olivia laughed, really laughed for the first time in weeks. "Come on, let's figure it out together." She followed Mia to the kitchen table, leaving Ethan alone with the news coverage of Catherine Grant's arrest. He turned off the TV. Some things didn't need to be watched. 2 months passed. Olivia found a job at a bookstore in the neighborhood. It paid $12 an hour and came with zero prestige, but she loved it. She helped customers find books, organized shelves, ran the register. She came home smelling like coffee and old paper instead of expensive perfume. She and Mia became inseparable. They did homework together, baked cookies, watched movies. Mia taught Olivia about playground politics and favorite cartoon characters. Olivia helped Mia with reading and taught her about constellations. Ethan watched it happen and felt something shift in his chest, something he hadn't felt since Rachel died, something that terrified him. One night, after Mia was asleep, Olivia sat with him on the tiny balcony outside his apartment. They could see the city lights spreading out below them, hear the distant sound of traffic. "I need to tell you something," Olivia said. "Okay." "I've been thinking about finding my own place. Not because I'm unhappy here. The opposite, actually. I'm too happy. And that's dangerous." "Why is being happy dangerous?" "Because this isn't real. Us living together, playing house, pretending we're a family. You didn't sign up for this. You did me a favor and I've overstayed my welcome by 2 months. You deserve your life back." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "What if I don't want my life back?" "What?" "What if I like having you here? What if Mia likes having you here? What if this, whatever this is something I want to keep?" Olivia looked at him, her eyes wide. "Ethan, I know it's complicated. I know we started this whole thing as a business arrangement, and it's probably stupid to think it could be anything else. But I care about you, Olivia, not as a client or a project or a person I'm helping, as you, and I think maybe you feel the same way." "I do. But that's exactly why I should leave. You have a daughter to think about. She's already getting attached. If it doesn't work out, we'll deal with it like adults. But if you leave because you're scared of what might happen, we'll never know what could have been." Ethan reached over and took her hand. "I'm not asking you to marry me or make some huge commitment. I'm just asking you to stay. See where this goes. Figure it out together." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Olivia squeezed his hand. "Okay, I'll stay." And then, because it felt right, because they'd been dancing around it for weeks, because sometimes the only way forward was to take the leap, Ethan kissed her. It was soft and tentative and perfect. When they pulled apart, Olivia was smiling. "That was unexpected," she said. "Good unexpected or bad unexpected?" "Very good unexpected." They sat there on this balcony holding hands and watching the city, two people who'd started as strangers and somehow found their way to something real. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about their situation was perfect. But it was theirs, built on honesty and choice and the courage to let go of what wasn't working to make room for what might. Inside, Mia slept peacefully, dreaming of whatever 8-year-olds dream about. Outside, the world continued spinning, full of complications and consequences and challenges still to face. Catherine's trial was pending. The media attention hadn't fully died down. Olivia's future was uncertain, as was Ethan's. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And that was enough. The kiss changed things, but not in the dramatic way movies suggested. There was no sudden transformation, no moment where everything became clear and simple. Instead, life continued in its messy, complicated way. Except now Ethan and Olivia were navigating it together instead of as two people orbiting the same crisis. The morning after, Mia came into the kitchen while they were making breakfast and stopped dead in her tracks. "You're holding hands," she said, pointing. Ethan and Olivia looked down at their intertwined fingers, then at each other, then at Mia. "Yeah," Ethan said. "We are." "Does that mean Olivia's your girlfriend now? Would that be okay with you?" Mia considered this seriously. "Will she still help me with homework?" "Of course," Olivia said. "And make cookies?" "Definitely." "Then yes, it's okay." Mia climbed onto her chair and reached for the cereal box. "Can I tell Mrs. Patterson? She's been asking if you two are dating because you look at each other weird." "How do we look at each other?" Ethan asked. "Like people do on TV right before they kiss. It's gross, but also kind of nice." Olivia laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. "You can tell Mrs. Patterson, but maybe skip the part about it being gross." The routine they'd fallen into shifted slightly. Olivia still worked at the bookstore, still came home smelling like coffee and paper. But now she and Ethan stayed up late talking about things that had nothing to do with Catherine or the investigation or the media circus. They talked about childhood memories and favorite books and whether pineapple belonged on pizza. They learned each other in small increments, building something that felt fragile and precious. 3 weeks after the kiss, Olivia got a call from her lawyer. "The SEC wants you to testify at Catherine's trial," Michael Chen said. "They're building their case, and your testimony about discovering the discrepancies would be crucial." Olivia was at the bookstore when the call came. She stepped into the back room, phone pressed to her ear. "When?" "Preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. Actual trial probably won't start for another 6 months, but they want to prep you now." "I don't know if I can do that. Testify against my own mother." "She stole $40 million, Olivia. She threatened you, manipulated you, tried to destroy your life. You don't owe her protection." "I know that intellectually, but she's still my mother." Michael was quiet for a moment. "You don't have to decide right now. Think about it. Talk to Ethan." "But Olivia, if you don't testify, there's a chance she walks. The financial evidence is strong, but your testimony about the family dynamics, the pressure to cover things up, the way she operated, that's what makes this a clear pattern of intentional fraud versus accounting errors." After the call ended, Olivia sat in the back room surrounded by boxes of new releases and tried to breathe through the panic rising in her chest. The bell over the front door chimed, customers arriving, but she couldn't make herself move. Her coworker, Jamie, poked her head in. "You okay back here?" "Not really." "Want me to cover while you take a break?" "Please." Olivia texted Ethan. "Can we talk when you get home? It's important." The response came immediately. "I'll be there at 6. Whatever it is, we'll handle it." That simple certainty steadied her. She went back to work, helped customers find books, ran the register, and tried not to think about Catherine sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial. Ethan got home at 6:15, grease-stained and tired. Mia was at Mrs. Patterson's for the evening, giving them privacy. Olivia had picked up Chinese takeout, the cheap kind from the place around the corner that Ethan loved and she was learning to appreciate. They sat on the couch with cartons of lo mein and fried rice, and Olivia told him about the lawyer's call. "So testify," Ethan said around a mouthful of noodles. "It's not that simple." "Why not? She's guilty." "You have information that proves it. The right thing is to tell the truth." "The right thing is also not sending your mother to prison for 30 years. Ethan set down his food. "Liv, she did this to herself. You didn't make her steal that money. You didn't make her threaten people or manipulate her own daughter. She made those choices. The consequences are on her, not you. I know that, but knowing it and feeling it are different things." Olivia picked at her rice without eating. "What if I testify and she gets convicted and spends the rest of her life in prison? How do I live with that? How do you live with staying silent and letting her get away with it, with knowing that your silence helped a guilty person escape consequences?" Ethan reached over and took her hand. "There's no good answer here. Either choice is going to hurt, but one of them is honest and one isn't. You've spent the last few months learning how to be honest even when it costs you everything. Don't stop now." "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple, it's just clear. Sometimes those are different things." Olivia leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. "What if she never forgives me?" "Then she never forgives you, but at least you'll know you did the right thing." The decision came easier after that conversation, though it didn't come painlessly. Olivia called Michael Chen the next morning and agreed to testify. She spent the following week preparing with prosecutors, going over financial documents and timeline details, practicing how to stay calm under cross-examination. The preliminary hearing was held in a federal courthouse downtown. Olivia wore a simple black dress, professional but not corporate, serious but not performative. Ethan came with her, sitting in the gallery with his rough hands folded in his lap, a steady presence in a room full of lawyers and journalists. Catherine was already seated at the defense table when Olivia entered. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the orange jumpsuit and lack of makeup. When their eyes met, Catherine's expression was pure venom. Olivia took the stand and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Park, walked her through the discovery process, how she'd first noticed discrepancies, what had made her suspicious, how she'd gathered evidence. Olivia answered carefully, sticking to facts, avoiding emotion. "And when you brought these concerns to your mother, what was her response?" Park asked. "She told me not to worry about it. said it was complex corporate structure that I didn't understand yet, that my father had set up certain arrangements before his death that were perfectly legal but required discretion. Did you believe her? At the time, yes. I wanted to believe her. She was my mother and the person running the company. I assumed she knew better than I did. When did that change? When she tried to force me into an arranged marriage to facilitate a merger. When she slapped me in public for refusing. When she threatened someone I cared about to maintain control. Olivia's voice remained steady. That's when I realized everything she'd told me about the company and about duty and about responsibility was really about maintaining her power. And if she was lying about that, she was probably lying about the finances too. Catherine's lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Richard Donnelly, stood for cross-examination. Miss Grant, isn't it true that you were removed as CEO for poor performance and erratic behavior? I was removed as CEO for refusing to marry Andrew Blackwood and facilitate the merger my mother wanted. And in retaliation for that removal, you made these accusations against your mother, correct? No. I made these accusations because I discovered evidence of fraud. Evidence you conveniently found right after being fired. Evidence I'd been compiling for months but didn't understand the full scope of until I had time to review it properly. Olivia met his gaze steadily. I didn't do this out of revenge, Mr. Donnelly. I did it because it was the truth. The cross-examination continued for another hour. Donnelly trying to paint Olivia as vindictive and unstable. Olivia calmly refuting each suggestion with facts. When it finally ended, she stepped down feeling exhausted but intact. Catherine was let out without looking at her daughter. Olivia watched her go and felt something break and reform inside her chest. Grief, maybe. Or acceptance. The understanding that some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. And that was okay. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. Ethan put his arm around Olivia's shoulders and pushed through without stopping, ignoring the shouted questions. They made it to his truck and drove away while camera flashes lit up the windows. You did good in there, Ethan said. I testified against my own mother. You told the truth. That's different. Is it? Yeah, it is. They drove in silence for a while, the city passing by in a blur of lights and traffic. Finally, Olivia spoke. I don't regret it. I thought I would, but I don't. She did terrible things and she needs to face consequences. But I'm also exhausted, tired of fighting, tired of being angry, tired of carrying all this weight. So put it down. How? You just do. You decide you're done carrying it and you let it go. It'll try to come back, guilt and anger and all the rest. But each time it does, you let it go again. Eventually, it gets easier. Olivia looked at him. You're talking about Rachel. Yeah, it took me 2 years to stop being angry that she died. Angry at her for getting in the car that day, angry at the drunk driver who hit her, angry at myself for not being there. But eventually, I realized the anger wasn't bringing her back. It was just making me miserable and making Mia's life harder. So I let it go. Some days were easier than others, but I kept trying. Do you still miss her? Every day. But it's different now. It's not this sharp, overwhelming thing. It's just part of who I am, part of my story. Ethan glanced at her. Your mother's choices are part of your story too, but they don't have to define it. You get to decide what comes next. What came next was slow and unglamorous and surprisingly ordinary. Catherine's trial proceeded over the following months. Olivia testified twice more, each time feeling a little less conflicted and a little more certain. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecutors had traced $47 million through shell companies and offshore accounts, all controlled by Catherine. The defense tried everything, claiming the transactions were legitimate business expenses, suggesting Olivia had fabricated evidence out of spite, even attempting to blame Richard Grant's ghost by suggesting he'd set up the system before his death. None of it worked. The jury deliberated for 6 hours and came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. Catherine was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. She showed no emotion when the judge read the sentence, just sat straight-backed and silent. Olivia watched from the gallery and felt nothing but a deep, weary sadness. Grant Industries restructured under new leadership. The board issued formal apologies and settled with shareholders. Andrew Blackwood left Consolidated Defense and took a position in Europe, far from the scandal. The estate was sold to cover restitution payments. Through all of it, Olivia worked at the bookstore and lived in Ethan's spare room and built a life that had nothing to do with corporate power or family legacy. She started small, teaching herself to cook, taking a pottery class at the community center, joining Mia for parent-teacher conferences because Mia asked her to. She learned what it felt like to be anonymous, to move through the world without everyone knowing her name or her history. It was terrifying. It was also freeing. 6 months after Catherine's sentencing, Olivia got a job offer. A tech startup wanted her as a consultant. They'd help with strategy and corporate structure for a fraction of what she'd made as CEO. But it was interesting work with people who didn't care about her family drama. She almost said no. Almost decided to stay at the bookstore where things were safe and simple. But Ethan pushed her. "You're good at this stuff," he said. "Strategy, business, all of it. Just because your mother corrupted it doesn't mean you have to abandon it completely. Maybe you just do it differently, on your own terms." So she took the job. Part-time consulting that let her work from home, set her own hours, and actually enjoy the problem-solving aspects she'd always loved about business. She helped 3 startups in the first year and found genuine satisfaction in building things instead of maintaining empires. Money was tight sometimes. Consulting didn't pay like being a CEO, but she and Ethan managed. They split rent and groceries. They cooked at home instead of ordering out. They shopped at thrift stores and learned how to fix things instead of replacing them. It was a different kind of life than either of them had imagined, but it worked. Mia turned 9, then 10. She grew taller and louder and more confident. She called Olivia by her first name, but treated her like family, the way kids do when they love someone without needing formal definitions. They had movie nights on Fridays and went hiking on Sundays and argued about homework and laughed at stupid jokes. One night, almost 2 years after Catherine's arrest, Ethan found Olivia on the balcony staring at the city lights. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "How different everything is. 2 years ago, I was the CEO of a billion-dollar company, living in a sterile apartment and planning a marriage I didn't want. Now I'm a part-time consultant living in a 2-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend and his daughter, and I've never been happier. It doesn't make sense." "Sure it does. You were living someone else's life before. This one's actually yours." "Our daughter wants to know if we're getting married," Olivia said suddenly. Ethan went still. "Our daughter? That's what she calls herself at school. Mrs. Patterson told me. When kids ask about her family, she says she has a dad and a sort of mom. I'm the sort of mom." "How do you feel about that?" "Terrified, honored, happy, all of it." Olivia turned to face him. "I never thought I'd have this. A family that chose each other instead of being stuck with each other. People who see me for who I am instead of what I can do for them. It feels too good to be real sometimes." "It's real. Messy and complicated and real. So what do we do about the marriage question?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. I haven't exactly been planning proposals or anything, but I also can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. You're part of us now, part of our family. Whether we make it legal or not doesn't change that. But it might matter to Mia, having something official. Maybe. Or maybe she just wants to know we're committed to each other, that you're not going anywhere." "I'm not going anywhere," Olivia said firmly. "Even if you tried to get rid of me at this point, I'd probably just camp outside until you let me back in. I'm very stubborn. I've noticed." They stood there holding each other while the city breathed around them, 2 people who'd found each other in the middle of chaos and somehow built something that lasted. A month later, Ethan asked Mia what she actually wanted regarding him and Olivia. They were making breakfast. Saturday morning pancakes had become a tradition. Mia was measuring flour, while Ethan heated the griddle. "I just want to know she's staying," Mia said simply. "Kids at school have parents who break up, and then one of them leaves. I don't want Olivia to leave." "She's not leaving, kiddo." "But how do I know for sure?" Ethan thought about how to answer that. "You don't, not completely. People can't promise forever because life is unpredictable, but we can promise to try. To work at it even when things are hard, and Olivia's pretty good at keeping promises." "So you're not getting married?" "I don't know. Would you want us to?" Mia considered this seriously. "Only if it means she's definitely staying. Otherwise it's just a party and I'd rather have ice cream." That conversation led to another one with Olivia that night. "What if we did something small?" Olivia suggested. "Not a wedding exactly, but something that makes it official. For Mia and for us." Like what? I don't know. A commitment ceremony? A family promise thing? Something that says we're choosing each other without all the pressure and performance of a traditional wedding. They planned it for a month later. Nothing fancy. Just the three of them and Mrs. Patterson and a few friends in the small park near their apartment. No fancy clothes, no catering, no guests who were there for networking, just people they actually cared about. Sophie came from California, grinning when she saw how Olivia had transformed. "You look happy," she said. "Actually happy. I wasn't sure you knew how." "I'm learning." The ceremony itself was simple. No officiant, no legal documents, just Ethan and Olivia standing in front of the people they loved and making promises. "I promise to be honest with you," Ethan said, "even when it's hard, to support the person you're becoming instead of trying to shape you into something else. To be here for the messy parts, not just the good ones." Olivia's voice was steady. "I promise to keep choosing this life, this family, you. To not run when things get difficult. To remember that love is a verb, not just a feeling. To be the person Mia needs and the partner you deserve." Mia stood between them, holding a ribbon they'd tied into a loose knot, a symbol they'd made up, something about connections that were strong but not constraining. "I promise to clean my room more," Mia said seriously, making everyone laugh. "And to tell you when I'm scared instead of pretending I'm not. And to remember that family is people who choose each other." They tied the ribbon around their joined hands, Ethan's and Olivia's with Mia's small one in the middle, and stood there together while Mrs. Patterson cried happy tears and Sophie took photos on her phone. Afterward, they had ice cream and cake in the apartment. No champagne, no formal toasts. Just people eating dessert and talking and being together. It was perfect in its imperfection. That night, after everyone had gone home and Mia was asleep, Ethan and Olivia sat on the balcony they'd claimed as their thinking spot. "I never thought this is how my life would turn out," Olivia said. "Working part-time, living in a small apartment, being a sort of stepmom to an amazing kid. It's so different from everything I was raised to want." "Do you miss it? The power, the status, all that?" "Sometimes I miss the certainty, knowing exactly what my role was, even if I hated it. But no, I don't miss the life. I don't miss being Catherine Grant's daughter or the Grant Industries CEO or any of those other identities that were really just performances." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I like being just Olivia, partner to Ethan, friend to Mia, person who helps customers find books and occasionally consults for tech startups. It's smaller, but it's mine. For what it's worth, I think you're doing great at the being yourself thing." "Yeah? Yeah, you're messy and uncertain and figuring things out as you go. That's what real people do. That's what being human looks like." Olivia smiled. "Remember when we met and I offered you $50,000 to pretend to be my boyfriend for a weekend? I remember thinking you were insane and desperate and that I was making a terrible decision by agreeing. Were you right?" "About the terrible decision? Absolutely. This whole thing was a disaster from start to finish." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "Best disaster of my life, though." They sat there watching the city until the lights started blinking out, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate catastrophes and built something new from the pieces. The lawsuits from Grant Industries investors settled quietly. Catherine's appeals were denied. Andrew Blackwood got married to someone else, a planned arrangement, according to the announcement. The media coverage faded as other scandals took center stage. Life moved forward in its relentless, ordinary way. Ethan's garage started doing better. The controversy had died down and customers returned. He hired Marcus back full-time and even brought on an apprentice, a kid from the neighborhood who needed a chance the way Ethan once had. Olivia's consulting work expanded. She developed a reputation for being tough but fair, someone who could fix broken systems without unnecessary drama. She worked with companies run by people who actually cared about their employees, not just their profit margins. Mia grew into herself, confident and curious and kind in ways that made both Ethan and Olivia proud. She asked hard questions about family and identity and what it meant to belong to people. They answered as honestly as they could, admitting when they didn't know, promising to figure it out together. 3 years after that first weekend at the estate, Olivia received a letter from prison. Catherine's handwriting, neat and controlled even on institutional paper. Olivia almost threw it away unopened. Instead, she took it to the balcony and read it while Ethan sat beside her. The letter wasn't an apology.
Catherine wasn't capable of that kind of vulnerability, but it was something adjacent to acknowledgement, a recognition that she'd made choices that hurt people, that her desire for control had destroyed relationships that might have mattered more than power. She didn't ask for forgiveness or even understanding. She just stated facts the way she'd always done, letting Olivia draw her own conclusions.
The final line read, "You were stronger than I gave you credit for. I'm not sure if I'm proud or angry about that. Probably both." Olivia set down the letter and looked at Ethan. "Should I write back? Do you want to?" "I don't know. Part of me wants closure. The other part knows Catherine isn't capable of giving it to me. Then maybe the closure isn't about her. Maybe it's about you deciding you're done needing anything from her."
Olivia thought about that, about the girl she'd been, desperate for her mother's approval, willing to sacrifice her own happiness to get it. About the woman she'd become, imperfect and uncertain, but choosing her own path. About the life she'd built that had nothing to do with Catherine's expectations or anyone else's. "You're right," she said finally. "I don't need anything from her. I already have everything that matters."
She folded the letter and put it in a drawer, unread again, unburdened by the need to respond. Catherine could have her prison cell and her controlled handwriting and her inability to apologize. Olivia had something better, a family she'd chosen and who'd chosen her back. That evening, they made dinner together, Ethan at the stove, Olivia chopping vegetables, Mia setting the table while complaining about her math teacher. The apartment was too small and the kitchen was cramped, and nothing about their life looked like the glossy perfection magazine sold as happiness. But it was real, messy and complicated, and theirs. And when Olivia looked around at this life she'd stumbled into, at the man who'd stood by her when he had every reason to run, at the girl who'd accepted her without hesitation, at the ordinary moments that had replaced corporate warfare and family dysfunction, she felt something she'd spent 30 years searching for. She felt free, not because all her problems were solved or because the future was certain, but because she'd finally learned that freedom wasn't about having control over everything. It was about choosing what mattered and letting go of what didn't. It was about building a life based on love instead of obligation, on honesty instead of performance, on being enough exactly as you were. Years later, when Mia asked her what the biggest lesson she'd learned from everything with Catherine and Grant Industries, Olivia didn't have to think about her answer. "I learned that you can't build a real life on other people's expectations. You have to figure out what you actually want, what actually makes you feel alive, and then have the courage to choose that even when everyone around you says you're wrong. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your choices. Might as well make them count." "Is that why you picked Dad?" Mia asked. "Because he made you feel alive?" "I picked your dad because he was the first person who saw me as just a person. Not an asset or a disappointment or a tool to be used. Just Olivia. And that was worth more than anything I was giving up." "Do you ever regret it? Leaving all that money and power behind?" Olivia looked around their small apartment, at Ethan fixing something in the kitchen and humming off-key, at the life they'd built from nothing but choice and commitment and stubborn determination to be happy. "Not even once," she said. "Not even a little bit." And she meant it. Because this was the truth she'd learned through all the chaos and heartbreak and transformation. Real power wasn't about controlling people or accumulating wealth or maintaining perfect appearances. Real power was choosing your own life and living it honestly, even when that life looked nothing like what anyone expected. Real power was being free.